Yes, good day, everybody. I hope everything's fantastic with you. Everything's fantastic with me on this end. I will tell you, it's just a little bit early today, but it's just one of those things that we have to do in the work that we do. Today, I've actually got a special guest with me who stopped by to give us his story and tell us a little bit about um, his journey and give us some tips on things that we can do to become better people. And what's neat is that this work that we do, this work that I've done over the last 3 years, um, it's an international job because this pornography and sex addiction does not stop at boundaries. So today, it's very special because um, 50 years ago, this wouldn't even happen, this particular conversation, right? And here we are internationally. I'm talking to somebody from the former Soviet Union, from, I think you pronounce it Latvia. Speaking with Mr. Algirts. He goes by AJ uh, Yanowicz. Good afternoon, sir. How are you today? You can cut your mic back on.
Good afternoon, Joseph. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. And thank you so much for stopping by and having an opportunity to share your story with us. I greatly appreciate it. Um, so, how's everything?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. It's all great. It's a beautiful day in my country, and I really appreciate this opportunity to be here on this podcast with you.
Thank you. On the side, what's the weather like where you are?
Oh, it's actually very grayish today, right? I hope that there will be a sun today, but it's very grayish, and it has been a snowstorm last night, so everything is very white on the ground, but it's beautiful.
And what is the temperature?
Oh, it's below zero. It's below
Okay.
zero in my country.
Below zero, and you're talking about centigrade and not Fahrenheit like we do in America.
All right.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And
That's yeah, I did that on purpose because I had already pulled up on my computer. I have this little converter. And a lot of times when
yeah.
I talk to people from other lands, I tell them my temperature, and yeah, I have to talk normal. But anyway, for everybody, zero is right at freezing. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
it's freezing here.
Yes, sir. So how old are you? If you're scared to tell your age.
Well, I will not be scared because I'm currently 23 years old,
Oh
right?
wow. Okay. So you're a
Right.
youngster. I didn't even realize that you were that young. Seriously, because the level of maturity that you've always demonstrated, it didn't even strike me. As a matter of fact, your age never even came across my mind until just a second ago. So that's pretty neat. So, if you will, tell me about your upbringing and your story and this and that, and how you first got into porn, any way that you like.
Yeah, sure. So I know this is a very sensitive topic, and not everyone would be willing to open up, especially publicly, especially with your loved ones, your relatives, including your closest family members. And I completely understand your feelings, and I've been in the same boat. But I love if you ever had a chance to know who is who is Terry Crews, right? He is a very famous influencer, and I think he was the first one of celebrities who spoke directly about the problem of pornography, right? That pornography is a problem. And what I love about one of his latest quotes about porn is the more you speak about it, the less influence it has over you. And that's what I experienced myself. That's what I experienced with working with my clients, that the more they talk about this, right, with someone, the less impact that has on their lives. So, but anyways, I started just as, I'm not any different than everyone else. I started with curiosity. It just was that one thing that, you know, I was curious about, these beautiful ladies on the screen, on the monitor. Back in the days, it was not the videos that caught my eye, but just games. And ironically, despite how the internet, tried to block all those adult games from kids by using this, uh, by using these disclaimers or warnings on the websites that you must be 18 years old to watch this content, it didn't work. So you can still access it even if you're a kid. You just need to press the right button. Right. So it all started with curiosity, and I didn't know. Well, I did know that it's bad, of course. I can't share it with my mom, with my father, what I'm doing, but I didn't know how it will influence my whole, mentality in the long term. And over the years, I was addicted for pornography for 7 years in total, ever since the middle school, right? And I didn't know that it was the main reason why I, you know, was feeling depressed, was feeling lonely, was feeling, trapped in the situations, and I really had a lot of situations in my early years where I felt, or I thought I felt depressed, and I couldn't find the solutions to the things that were happening in my life. But mostly because I tried to, run away from those things and try to cope all my negative emotions, all my feelings by, just hiding in my room, in my bedroom, by watching pornography, right? And that's what most people do. That's why what I hear from most of the people that I coach with, that's what I'm hearing from all the stories in porn recovery groups all the time, that people are just trying to cope their negative emotions, cope their stress, their boredom by watching pornography and masturbating, right? And I wasn't different. I was the same guy, right? I was doing completely the same thing. And it was also the reason why I had difficulty to establish normal relationships with people, because it was something, you know because of porn, I actually had completely wrong perception of how you can establish relationship with a girlfriend. Right, specifically. So I had this wrong mentality, wrong uh, awareness, if you will, that if you have a girlfriend, then of course you need to have sex with her, right? That's the main goal. And
Yeah,
because of it,
I think we would call that like you had a jacked up uh, point of view about how you're supposed to interact with women.
yeah, my whole perception of how I can interact with women was completely wrong, and because of that, I was shy, I was not confident, I was always, uh, try to hide my emotions, try to, suppress my feelings, and always, be more, sensitive, right? Be more sensitive towards different triggers, not only from other people, but also from events that are happening in my life, right? So that's about my story. That's how it all started, right? And those were the consequences that uh, not many would agree that porn can do, this kind of damage on you. But you can realize, I believe you can realize the real consequences only when you stop consuming this, right? And you start to, embrace the real life experience that can open up to you when you just don't, stimulate your brain, your body with so much pleasure, right?
That's pretty good. Now, let me ask you, when was your first exposure to pornography? What age?
It was it's hard to remember, but I
Approximately,
believe it
approximately
was
5, 6,
about
8, 9.
yeah, it was about like 6 year, right?
And
6
then
years
how
old.
did you stumble into it, over somebody else's house or over your house in this trash can? What was
Well, well, it was actually my house. It was
okay?
actually our parents' house. It was me and my brother. We were kind of, doing it all together, and that's how it all started.
Y'all were doing it all together. Does that mean that y'all were watching porn and then y'all were doing it all together, or just watching porn? I mean, you said doing it all together, so I had to say that. I think
Yeah,
I know what you mean, but because
yeah.
the
So,
masturbation part usually advances after a whole bunch of watching porn. Is that what
yeah,
happened to
yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. Uh, we didn't did it together specifically. He was
I know
just
that.
the person who got me into it in
Hmm.
terms of, I didn't necessarily had a desire to do it with him. I was more of the,
Oh no, no, I know that. I was just joking. Yeah, I got that. I got that.
yeah.
I got that.
But anyway,
So
yes,
that was about what age? I get confused with. You said
6 years old. It was
6 years
about
old.
6 years old.
All right.
Yeah.
So that was the first exposure, and then when did it become regular exposure? What age was that?
It was not immediate. That's what I can tell for sure. It was not something that happened like immediately. I started to look at porn over and over again. No, it was something that became a problem, you can call that, when I was in the early stage of my puberty, right?
So
In
you
the
say like
middle
about
school,
14, 13, 12?
I would say 12. When I
Mm-hmm.
was 12 years old, when I started to get all these, hormones, uh, and yeah, that was the moment when I felt the most urges to go and look for something like that, right? And that's when it all started, right? More consistency with more curiosity and intensity, right? So yeah,
Did you ever get into any intense porn, like illegal porn, chat girls, gooning, any extreme graduations?
I don't think if you can share this.
Okay, well then,
but
then,
but
then,
but
then, what you can say is that you did get into extreme versions of porn that you choose not to share, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
yeah,
No need
yeah,
to
I
share.
understand.
Yeah, no
But
need to go in places we don't need to go into. Was that one of the reasons that you like woke up and smelled the coffee and said, "Hey, this isn't behavior consistent with who I am and what I want to be"?
actually, the funny fact is that it was not the reason. At the end of the day, it was not the reason. And I don't think the porn that I watched personally was illegal
Hmm.
in, at, uh, at that time specifically. Well, maybe right now it's illegal, but at that time, I don't think it was. But the things that I watched personally, right, I can share this freely. It was more, it all started with, uh, how you can call it, the, the, how you can call it, the easy porn
Hmm.
that is not so intense.
Yeah, we call that. They call that vanilla porn, I guess.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's
something
what
like
they
that.
call it.
Yeah, right. Some vanilla porn, and then it slowly turned to something more intense, more wrong in terms of your belief, if you are religious, right? Uh, Something like incest porn or something like that. Like, and I recall that for me, the most problem, especially when I tried to quit watching porn, the most problem for me was quit not regular porn with real people in it, but for me was the most difficult thing for me was to quit
Hentai?
the animated porn, yeah, the
The hentai.
hentai,
Mhm.
right? Because it's completely right. You can't even compare it to normal regular porn. It's completely different. It has completely different visuals, and it's out of this world if if you can sell that,
Yeah,
right?
in my world, and I only said what I said because it's this pattern that keeps showing up.
Yeah,
And so it's like, and it's not anything that like is unexpected. It's like you can expect it because of the fact that we're dousing ourselves with a bunch of neurochemicals and we're not getting enough. So
yeah,
the way that we get enough is we graduate and then we have to keep it's an endless cycle, but it goes in steps. So I always ask people, like, how did it graduate? Because it's always going to graduate.
yeah,
Fortunately, for most people, it doesn't graduate into questionable behavior and things
yeah,
that could get you in trouble. But like you said, I mean, you even, and we're not trying to go too hard there, but you even said that, you weren't too many steps from something that really could get you in trouble. So, and that's what
yeah,
happens. And I tell you, as I listen to your story, it's just marvelous because it's a classic porn addicted man's story. And like when you listen to this again, because like you're telling it, so you can't really hear it as well as I can. When you listen to this is like the class. I mean, I've never even heard a classic story like this. Not only because of the fact that you're telling it, but also you're telling it specifically where you're identifying critical parts in the story. So, yeah,
yeah.
I really appreciate that. So, tell me about, I call it the day of reckoning. What was the day of reckoning when, hey, I can't do this no more. This is killing me. What was that day? What was that like? And what did you do?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. And for me, to be honest, I grew up personally in a, quite religious environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
My father was a Christian, well, not like a Christian, but more like he went to Catholic church. My grandma was Catholic, and we were quite religious. But
Stop for a second. Stop for a second. For y'all in America, that's
yeah,
Catholic, but I
Catholic.
like the way he says it. Go ahead, AJ.
Right. So forgive me if I'm spelling something that you don't understand. But anyways, so I grew up in this religious environment, and I knew that it's bad, but I didn't care at a certain age after certain things happened in my life. And I recall that the first uh, red red
Red flag.
triggers, or how you call it, red flags, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for me was first of all, my first relationships with women, right, were, as I mentioned in the beginning, I was searching for intimacy specifically. I couldn't create that normal connection with women
Mm-hmm.
because I was seeking that intimacy. And I remember I had this one amazing, amazing, amazing girl with good intentions. She was, at that point, I believe she was, the queen of my life. But because I had the wrong mindset, I couldn't maintain the relationship. And soon they just broke up because I was focusing on one thing, right? And couldn't help myself, right? And she spotted that what, this guy is not serious. He's just wanting this one thing. He's not serious. He's not about building you know good long-term relationship. He's just one thing, right? And I had many situations like that, and but it still wasn't enough for me. It was still wasn't enough. And think when I choose to create a change was actually, it was not a woman, but it was actually a choice to do self-development. I was introduced to one amazing book that's called, I believe, maybe you heard of it, maybe you didn't. It's called Robert Kiyosaki Think and Grow Rich book.
Well, it's Napoleon Hill, but I know you're
Oh,
mixing
no,
your
no, no.
authors up. That's fine. No. It's the set.
Yeah, that's the wrong
You
book. That's the wrong book.
you just read so many books that
Yeah, so
it
many
was
books. My mind is
it
filled
was
with different
chapter
authors,
13.
different names,
I
right?
think it was chapter 13 where he talks about sex transmutation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as well as that. But the first book that I got introduced was the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad and Poor Dad, right? I remember
Okay.
that. And I remember I was reading that book, and that book changed my whole perception of how you can, look at things in life, especially in terms of your own personal growth, in terms of how you can deal with your finances, and how you can create your own future. So at that moment, I made a decision that I need to do the same thing. And I realized that the only thing that is holding me back was, this obsession with pornography, because I was wasting a lot of time. I was wasting a lot of time. And because I was indulging into it over and over and over again, I couldn't think clearly because my mind was just filled with all these sexual images, with sexual memories of all those things that I watched. And it was very tough journey to get rid of those things, because when you are on recovery process, the first 30 days is the most difficult part of the journey, because you continuously will get those porn flashbacks of the things that you watched. And I had to go through that. And at that moment, I realized, right, that it's a problem. It is a real problem. Of course, I couldn't quit pornography at the first time, but I started to, treat this very, very seriously. Right? And I started to look at medicine forums, what they are speaking about it, why they are talking about it. I started to look up for some websites, some blog posts about how you can do this, how your mind works. And that was the first time I got introduced to this movement called NoFap,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's when things got really, really serious. That was, but the major, again, right, returning back to the question, the major part for me to make that decision that I need to change was that I realized that there is something more for me, and I will not be able to get it if I will continue, being the same person as I used to be. Right? Because I realized that, you know, this activity will not help me to get where I want to get. Right? This activity will not help me. And I know for different people it's different, right? Because I'm working more with families. I'm working with men who want to save their relationship with their wife and uh, and create that lifestyle to sustain their happy family's future. And that that is very, very huge motivation for many men to quit pornography, because they don't want to, ruin their relationship. They don't want to ruin their family, right? And that is major motivation for me, because I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you have a family member that becomes addicted to something, and that starts to, neglect you, your kids, your mom, right? And completely turns from a great dad figure to a complete mess, right? So I know what it feels like. So I don't want other people to experience the same thing. So that's why I'm helping families specifically, right?
One of the things that you actually said, which really ties into what has to happen in order for somebody to recover, which in
Yeah,
fact did happen for you, is that you realized that there was more. You
Yeah,
realize that you can't be the same person and get more. And, you know, one of the things that has to happen in this journey is that a person has to grow up from being a person that does porn, jerks
yeah,
off in front of pictures. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, you got to be a person that grows out of a person that has an identity that thinks that's something you do.
yeah,
Jerking off at pictures. And, you know, I'm going to leave my opinion about that to the side because it's not helpful, but like you have to grow out of somebody that does that. And that's what you actually said. You can't be the same person. And that's the same as an identity shift, which has to happen. And if we want to be biblical, 1 Corinthians 13 at the bottom of the page says, when you were a child, you did childish things. You're an adult now. You can't do childish things anymore. And that's what has to happen. You have to grow out of it. And that's exactly what you did.
yeah.
So after you did that, what made you decide that you wanted to serve other people and help other people? What's that all about?
Oh, that's another great question because uh, I don't think many people who are addicted or who were addicted would be willing to do this publicly. And again, to share with everyone and to help everyone. So the reason why I choose to become someone who helps other men, right, to to save their families and relationship was actually because, again, of the same book, right, of the same self-development book. I was starting to self-develop myself. I started uh, to really involve in self-education, right? At that moment, I was graduating from college, and I was trying to create different business models that wasn't working for me, right? So I was trying to do a lot of things, including self-development. And at that time, I was struggling to quit pornography, which is
And
also,
and let me jump in right here. See
yeah, yeah,
something that needs to be addressed because it's something you did.
yeah, sure.
Was not only do you grow up, but you have to become a bigger person so that you
Yeah,
can hold the good stuff. Like you know, they don't put good stuff in small vessels. So you have to grow and expand so so that you can become a vessel that holds good stuff. And then
exactly.
it's out of that that the good stuff in you can manifest itself outside of you. Isn't it
Yes,
interesting? Like your outside world is always a reflection of your inside world.
yes. That is very interesting. Yeah, that is very
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
But that's
grown
true.
folk talk. Like everybody doesn't want to, you know, they don't want to they don't want to like get that what you see is what's in here. And
Yes,
when this changes, that's going to change too. And
that's
so if
that.
you want that to change, don't worry about changing that. You change this, and that will always change.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So good stuff. I mean, like this is an incredible interview. Excuse me. Back to some of the things that you talked about are so, I don't know, characteristic of porn users. Hiding in the bedroom, no connection.
right, right.
Depression. You know, we're depressed because we keep flooding ourselves with neurochemicals and we've biojacked ourselves. So when we don't have that consistent set of neurochemicals, we get depressed.
Yeah,
When our body, even though we've been providing it the same amount of neurochemicals, when our body says, "Hey, we want more, give me more, we need more," we get depressed, sad,
yeah,
get angry, want to throw phones across the room, and so forth.
yeah. And that is exactly what happens, right? When you're consuming something that gives you so high amounts of pleasure in terms of dopamine, right? You just feel bad when you just don't get it,
Mm-hmm.
right? or all the regular stuff like, sunny day, funny movie, your cat, your relationship, it just doesn't feel the same way, and that's why you feel like, oh, it just doesn't feel good anymore, right? Why? Because you just consumed too much of that high amounts of dopamine, and when you do that unconsistently, when you do that on consistent basis, that's when you can get depressed, when you just stop consuming it. But guess what? Is exactly what you need to go through if you want to really embrace the real life and enjoy the real life, the real relationships, right?
And one of the things you also talked about is you talked, excuse me, you talked about personal development.
Yes.
You talked about becoming a better person. And by the way, I think I saw in your background, is it Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within? Is that in your
Oh,
background?
actually,
Or
it is.
is it Tony Robbins? Which one is it? It's one of those. Anyway, I read it,
Yeah,
I
it
think.
is. It's Awaken the Giant.
Yeah. That's actually one of my favorite books. Yeah.
Yeah,
He comes
it
out,
is.
he comes out the gate pretty serious. Yeah.
It is. Right.
And one of the things that he talks about, and I don't know if you talk about this with your clients or if you've identified this, but in some of the stuff that Tony Robbins does, he talks about meeting human needs, 6 human needs: certainty,
Yes.
uncertainty, significance, connection, growth, and contribution. And what we find is that people who use porn is it's a way that they fulfill meeting needs, meeting the need for connection, meeting the need for significance,
Yeah.
meeting the need for control, meeting the need, I guess, contribution, because there's some donations going on, if you if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, what was your need that you found that you were meeting with porn?
I believe it was the need for love and connection. I believe. Honestly, if you look up for it, you can find that, there are many needs that can be met by porn, including love and connection. But yes, I love this analogy, and I love what Tony Robbins is doing because he is explaining this in a very, very simple way that can relate to everyone. That can relate to everyone. And I'm doing the same thing in my program. I'm using his methodology. I'm also bringing up the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right. So, and yeah, you can't, when you are moving away from this addiction, you can't do it by masking, by skipping the steps of these human needs, right? Because if you will look up for Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, then there are specific steps of the pyramid that must be met, right, before you move forward. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's very, very exciting if you dive into it.
So, what else do you want us to know? What one thing is it that you want us to know? If no
Yeah.
one heard
So
anything that we've been talking about for the last couple minutes here, what one thing would you
yes.
want them to know?
So the major thing that I really want to point out is that, you can learn a lot of things. You can learn why porn is bad, why it's not good for you, for your family, for your health, for your future. You can learn a lot of things, how you can get rid of porn of your life. You can learn, you can read these books, you can watch guys like us, right? And yes, here it is, right? Hierarchy of human needs. You can do a lot of things. You can learn a lot of information, but the thing that helped for me, and I always bring this up in when I'm working with people, is that nothing of this will ever work. Nothing of this will ever help you to ignore the temptation, ignore the urges, and recover completely if you don't have the compelling future, right? If you don't know what you are going for, you will not be able to make it, because you will always have this excuse that, you know what, porn gives you much more pleasure than you can get from what you're doing on a consistent basis, right? All the workouts you do, all the self-education you do, it just doesn't matter, right? Because, that's not so comfortable than just watching porn, right? So, and that's what I did, right? I started to self-educate myself. I started to build businesses, and I joined coaching program, right? That eventually inspired me and gave me this compelling future that, you know what? I want to do the same thing. That made me really realize that, you know what? I want to do the same thing. I want to help people change their lives by changing their mindset, the way they think, the way they observe the world, how they make decisions, how they think about things, right? That really inspired me, and that gave me my compelling future that eventually helped me quit pornography for good, right? Because I had this basis of the knowledge how I can quit pornography, but I didn't have this compelling future that I'm moving towards to, right? And if you read Tony Robbins, he's always talking about, consistent, never-ending improvement,
Constant,
right?
never-ending improvement.
Yes,
Constant,
constant, never.
never-ending improvement. Kaizen is I think it's a Japanese word for that.
Yes.
Continuously improving. Yeah, it was funny that you had mentioned that games got you, which is interesting. That
Yeah.
games kind of pulled you in, that there was kind of pornographic games.
Yeah. And,
And by the
you
way,
know,
game devices, I believe that's like 20-30% of pornography is actually accessed through gaming devices. Did you access any pornography through your gaming device, by the way?
well, it depends
Or
on
did you didn't know how?
I would say that I didn't just know how, right? That was the first time. And
Okay.
for kid, right? It was much more easier to access porn games than actually go and look for videos, right? Because at that time there was no such thing as YouTube. There
Hmm.
was nothing like YouTube, right? And I didn't even know that you can watch something on the internet, right? So the games was the thing, right? And when you realize, oh, there are games like this, then that was the first first red flag.
Now, this is probably my last question. This one actually is going to put you on the spot, but it's actually something I want somebody else to talk about other than me. So we're both Christians, and we both have Jesus Christ as our Savior. We both were blatantly, how should we say it, disobedient when we were drowning in such sin. But what do you have to say to Christian men that think that they can pray their way out of a sex addiction?
What do I think about it?
Yeah.
You see, I would say it's prayer itself is a very, very, very powerful tool. And the fact that you have this baseline of belief, you have this baseline of values, it's very important, because you have standards,
Mhm.
right? You have standards that are holding your whole life. But the thing is, when it comes to addiction, you must understand that your flesh, it doesn't really work the way your spirit does, right? And while you are educating your spirit by reading the Bible, by praying, right, your flesh, it operates from how it works, right? From the standard points of the flesh. And that was exactly what was confusing for me, because I also thought that, you know what, if I can just stop watching porn, I will be able to get rid of it. But the reality is, it's not that simple, right? because you still crave it no matter what. And I had to go through this journey, which, by the way, was 2 years. I had to go through 2 years of consistent failures when I finally realized that, you know what? I cannot control my flesh, right? My flesh is operating by its own standards, and I had to figure out how it's working so I can use that knowledge, right? And create a specific strategy to, you know what, that is not based on magic, that is not based on religion, but it's based on specific, logical, uh, iron, just I could say the pillars of knowledge, whatever, right? If you really realize how your body works, right, you will realize that it's not that hard. You just need to control yourself. You just need to be aware of this knowledge. You just need to be aware of the triggers that can trigger you, and you have no control over it, right? Because it's part of our nature. It's part of our instinct that it was built in us. Why? How? Right? Bible don't really go into details on how that all happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a fact. It's how we operate. And if you just pray, that okay, that's cool, but you need to know the basics. You need to understand how your body works so you can help yourself through the prayer and be aware that, you know what? I don't need to do this. I know I don't need to do that, and I will be good. Right? So that's kind of my answer, right? That prayers are powerful and I use them myself every single day, but it's not enough, right? It's not enough. You still need compelling future. You still need the basic knowledge of how your mind, how your body operates.
That takes some guts to say that prayer isn't enough. You know that, right? And it
Yes,
isn't enough. I'm telling
yes,
you, it isn't enough. So I'm saying the same thing, but I'm just telling you, it took you some guts to say that prayer isn't enough
yes,
because it's
yes.
the
And I'm
truth.
sorry. Yeah, and I'm sorry if it's, if it's not comfortable for you to hear that prayer isn't enough.
On this,
This is something that I hear from my pastor all the time, right? Maybe I got something from him, right? Definitely, but he's telling the same thing all the time. If you just pray without knowing why you pray about, right? If you're just praying to God that give me this, give me this, give me that, and you don't do, right, what your God is preparing you for, right, you're just waiting for magic to happen. It will not happen because you're not doing the things that you were supposed to do so God can help you, right, at the moments of weakness. So that's what I've been going through. That's what I've been using, and this realization was the pivot point of my recovery when I really understood and I implemented everything. I combined everything, the basic knowledge with the prayer, with the help of God, right? So yes.
thank you. I mean that's a tough one, and it's a tough one to deal
Yeah,
with people, and I just wanted somebody else to say what I was going to say because that's pretty much what I would say, and it's very difficult sometimes, and it's also frustrating to see somebody go in circles and just pray and expect God to fix it. Because he wasn't around. You didn't have God all there when when the person was doing all that porn and jerking, and now all of a sudden, oh, they don't need to talk to Joe Price. They don't need to talk to AJ. All they need to do is just sit
yeah,
around and pray for the next 5 years, and then keep doing the same thing, if not worse. Because I see
yeah.
it all the time. It just keeps going down and down and down and down. And then this is the last question. Talk to us about like after you stop doing porn, like there's a disruption in your system and how do you prepare for that? I mean, that's a hard time. And like if you're not ready for that, it's very easy. That's part of why people rinse and repeat in the addictive cycle is that they're not ready for that war that's coming at them when they stop.
How do you prepare for that?
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I would definitely encourage people to do is just try it, right? Because if you will have, if you will know everything that you need to go through, all the struggles, all the downfalls, if you will know all of that, you might not even take the action, right? That's the real reality, right?
Okay.
But if you will understand, okay, why am I doing this? Why do I need that in the first place? Right? If you will understand at least that basic, right, realization of what's your compelling future, why you need to do this, then all the rest, all the answers will come to you, right?
Yeah,
Not
that's what I like to
magically.
always teach people
Yeah,
is like prepare yourself to be able to respond, because that's
yeah,
what life wants you to do. It wants you to respond. You don't have to prepare for every little war that's going to come. You
yeah,
just need to be able to respond to the wars when they come.
yeah, exactly.
All right, sir. Anything final? Any parting words? Anything else that you want to say? I've done like I don't know, 100 interviews in life, and for some reason this one is going to be high up there. I think that you really delivered a great story. I think you allowed people to get into the life of someone that is struggling with porn addiction, and I also think that you have allowed the person to get into the life of someone that recovers, and what it takes to do that. And I think that you've done that better actually than I've ever heard it done. So kudos to you. Now I've heard a lot of stories, and I don't think anybody has done it so well. So I just got to give you credit where it's due. So, how would we get in contact with you? How can we keep in relationship with you, sir?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram or on Facebook or on LinkedIn. Just type my name, Algirts, and you will find me. Definitely, you will see my face. You can you can find me. But yeah, the one thing that I want to mention at the end is that, no matter what happens, right? Just remember, why are you doing this? Right? Just focus on why are you doing this. Right? Find that one motivation that is keeping you on the track, right? And as I already said, you will find the answers. You will find the answers. You will know where to look at, who to ask. You will know all of that. But if you're struggling, right, just don't give up on yourself, because right, you know that it's worth it no matter what other people are saying, right? Because again, if this is relating to you, if this is something that you can relate to, all this talk, then you know that it's worth it, and you know what it does to your life, to your mindset, to your relationships. So don't give up on yourself, right? And keep trying to become better.
What an interview! Wow, AJ Algirts Yanowich. Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate you coming by and giving us your story. It's very magnificent. I'm sure we'll be doing some more work together, and I'll invite you back. And like I said, when you do your first podcast and get that started, I'll be around. And
All right, Joseph, thanks for having me.
yes, sir. So until next time, folks, take one step at a time. This is a journey. It's not a marathon. You don't get any second instant replays. It's real life. You get second chances, but you don't get instant replays. Each day is a game, if you will, a game in a large series called life. And I think your objective is a victorious life. And a victorious life is achieved the same way you build a building, one brick at a time, perfectly placed. So I've said it before, it's not every move that counts. They all count. Make your next move count the most. Make your next move right so it does count the most. And until next time, drive with care and walk with caution. You matter. You're enough. And you got this. You got this. You just have to live. LIVE. And that means right now, to live, to be live. And right now, to be live enough to make today better than yesterday and make tomorrow better than today. We'll see you next time. God bless you.